Well, I think what has to happen is there has to be a meeting of the Joint Ministerial Committee involving the administration in Edinburgh and Cardiff, and hopefully an administration in Belfast as well. It's important that the government recognises that the devolved administrations have to be involved in this process. And specifically what we're asking for is that the next round of talks, that the Scottish Government is represented there. We have to recognise where we are. Theresa May went into this election with an expectation of getting a landslide. She got a bloody nose. There is not a majority in the Commons for a hard Brexit, and it's important that we all come together in order to get the best deal that can be achieved out of these talks. We accept that the United Kingdom is coming out of the EU, but we have a duty to represent the interests of the people of Scotland, and I think there's a very clear demonstration, not just in Scotland, but one would argue right throughout the United Kingdom, that people don't want to lose the benefits of access to the single market. So it's about, I think, coming together
on your
with the UK
demand
government,
for
acting in a responsible position.
On you do in that case, what pressure can you exert?
I think the government has to recognise the position it's in London. It doesn't have a majority, it is a minority. What we're trying to do is to seek a compromise. It goes back to the document that the Scottish Government published last December.
And which they have rejected.
It's about recognising the differences that are there.
Which they have rejected.
We haven't actually had a formal rejection. Well, we need to say to the government, look, you've got a responsibility to try and bring the UK together, to bring the devolved nations of the UK together. We respect the position that the UK government is in. We respect the decision that was taken to come out of the EU. But we're equally trying to make sure that our decision, our demand to remain within the single market, for the importance of defending the national interest in Scotland, and in particular defending jobs and living standards, is important. We're willing to compromise. I think that's what people in the country want, and the government of the United Kingdom should recognise that as well.
If you did get your idea of Scottish representation in the next round of talks in Brussels, along with the rest of the British negotiating team, presumably you would say you would agree a position in advance with the rest of the British negotiating team, because one thing the British government would find intolerable is if you had representation from Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland who were disagreeing with Britain's own negotiators as part of the discussion. So there would have to be a negotiated agreement, right?
I think there's a way of fashioning that, and that's exactly the position that the government in Edinburgh took. We're seeking to compromise with the UK government in the interest of people in Scotland, and if I may say so, people in the rest of the United Kingdom as well. I think we need a degree of humility from everybody in politics at the moment. The election's over, and it is very clear that the country want to see the opinions that are represented in Edinburgh and Belfast and Cardiff are taken account of in these talks, and that the devolved administrations can have their say in protecting the national interest in each of those territories.
One bit of pressure you could apply is to threaten to vote against a legislative consent motion for the Great Repeal Bill. The problem is that, given the Supreme Court has already decided that Scotland can't stop that bill going ahead and can't stop Brexit going ahead, it's not much of a threat, is it?
Well, nobody's threatening anything at the moment. I think the important point is that we now know that there is going to be a legislative consent motion that will have to come from the Scottish Parliament. What we're saying to the government in London, let's work together to effect an effective compromise that respects your position but also respects ours as well. It's about trying to behave in a responsible manner, recognise the mandate that we have from the people of Scotland, and really, I suppose, saying to the UK government, what you've got to do is do the right thing. Acknowledge the position that you're in, that you don't have this majority for a hard Brexit. The UK government says that it wants to maintain trade with Europe, so do we. The important point is for us that has to come through access and membership to the single market and the customs union. And indeed, what I would say, Gordon, is that many other people, not just in the SNP but in wider society, and indeed even Ian Duncan, who's been elevated to the House of Lords, has made it clear that the Scottish Government must be represented. I think that's a reasonable position to take, and the government in London should acknowledge that, and we should get on with the job of representing all the people of Scotland to make sure that we achieve what is best for all of us.